Alright, what's up guys? Today we have a new video. It is a Master Duel video. This game obviously just came out yesterday. Incredibly fun. Tons of different decks to choose from. But in today's video we're going to discuss what are the best decks that you should play. So first thing that you should realize about this game is that the ban list is actually mixed. It's not TCG, it's not OCG. It's a mix of both. But the majority is OCG. And because of that we have cards like Maxi are legal in addition to various other things like Union Carrier, for example, Fairy Tale Snow, Grasslick Screener. A lot of stuff is legal that is not typically legal. Very interesting situation, a lot of decks to choose from, and a lot of implications with, of course, not only Maxi, but other cards being legal. A lot of floodgates are legal, for example. So you have to play around those kinds of cards, and you have to play smart. So these are the decks that I think are the best decks. I have 7 decks for you today that are all pretty good, that have gotten better since this new list has dropped. So right off the bat, we have Adamancipators. This is a deck that never really got to be meta because of COVID, but the positive thing is, in early 2020, this was actually a really strong deck. It was probably easily the best deck in the metagame, and because of it, a ton of different cards got hit. Cards like Block Dragon, cards like, where is this guy, Union Carrier, stuff like that, Jet Synchron. A lot of these synchro combo decks sort of died around this time, but because this is a different ban list, we have access to Jet Synchron, which we can summon off of Crystron. We can search Block Dragon with a multitude of ways. Number one, you can attach it with a Union Carrier, or you can search it off of Galleon Granite, which is just 2 level 4s. So this card is one of the best rock monster ever printed. You have access to it finally. You special summon it by banishing any 3 earth monsters from your graveyard. Doesn't even matter. And then if this card leaves the field, it leaves the field from anywhere, spawn trap card zone or main monster zone, you can search rock monsters equal to the level 8. So you can search, basically you can search 2 seekers, and a seeker, a researcher, and, like, for example, a Gigantus. It's a +3 every single turn. You bring it back, and then you just you just link it off and then use that effect. Incredibly consistent, incredibly good. This deck, without a doubt, got better. One of the strongest combo decks in the entire game. Definitely worth trying to build, and the only issue with it is that you do have a lot of, like, super rares and stuff like that. But outside of that, this is a very strong deck. And you have, of course, just because Max C came out and you're playing a combo deck doesn't mean that everything has to be bad. So yes, we do have Max C, but at the same time, you have the counterplay. You have 2 Call by the Graves instead of 1 Call by the Grave. You have 3 Ash Blossoms if you so choose to play them, and you've got 3 Crossout Designators. You have everything. You can play around Nibiru, you can play around Maxi, you can play around a lot of different things. Maxi does suck, it's annoying to play against, but fortunately, you do have some of the counterplay. This is definitely one of the stronger combo decks of the game, and it combos off so hard that you can get Maxi, go, okay, I pass, sit on your hand traps, and then the following turn just full combo again. This is one of the decks that isn't particularly heavily hurt, and if anything, in a lot of different ways, this deck got significantly better. So Adamancipators is our first deck. Alright, our next deck is the what do we have here? A Virtual World. Again, this is kind of interesting because this doesn't include... this game has a TCG/OCG ban list, but at the same time, you have to remember, a lot of the new decks, like, as we can see, we have an Arch Nemesis Prometheus. I just saw him somewhere around here lingering. Yeah, Sword Soul is actually not even out in this game. Here's Arch Nemesis Prometheus. Yeah, Sword Soul's not even out in the game. A few archetypes that are really good are not out in the games. This game doesn't actually have the last few sets. But this deck, about, I'd say, around a year ago, was the best deck in the game, and the main reason being that True King of all Calamities was totally legal. And with the OCG list kind of mixed in, it's legal again. True King of all Calamities is a completely broken card. It locks your opponent out of activating any monster effects. And this is one of those, like, mid-range sort of combo decks where, again, you don't have to particularly play into Maxi. You activate one of your effects. If your opponent Maxis you, you just pass turn. You have tons of hand traps. You have spawn trap card. Interruptions if you need it. It's not that big of a deal. You have access to a really good draw card in Pot of Desires. And also, you've got the Emergency Teleport, which is also very strong. And now it's at 2, whereas when the deck came out, it was at 1. Again, Maxi does hurt this deck, but at the same time, it is a more mid-range than it is kind of a strong, just absolute combo deck. Also, it's got a really decent Synchro, XYZ, and Link package. So you've got access to level 6s. You have access to level... the Crystal Wing's a little tricky to make, but you can still make it pretty easily. You have level 9s, which obviously you make the Cloud Castle, just bring back any other level 9, and then you make the True King of all Calamities, and that's typically the play. And then you can sit on a True King of all Calamities, and you can use stuff like the Virtual Gate Trap to protect it if you need to. So, yeah, you can use, like, for example, the one that destroys to protect your True King of all. I think it's this one right here. No, it's the other one. You can use your cards to protect True King of all Calamities. If your opponent tries to impermanent, you can just destroy your own card, and then your card resolves, so it's no big deal. But yeah, you have Gothams. This is one of the better cards just one of the better synchro monsters available to you. It's basically like a Macrocosmos on legs. Also very good. You can make it very easily. Like, even its secondary and third plays are pretty good. Going second, it's got like the XYZs. You can go into Zeus, attack, and then sit on a Zeus if you need to. Yeah, it has access to rank 3s, Synchro 6s, Synchro 9s. Very, very strong deck. Definitely, I would give this one a try. Any one of these decks is definitely a serious meta contender. All right, next up is this one's actually a curveball. It's actually Sky Strikers. So Sky Strikers is actually, in certain ways it took a few hits, but in a lot of ways it got significantly better. So first of all, this is a control deck, like a definition of the word control deck. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't have any natural floodgates within its own archetype. It just gains resources over a course of time. And this, because it's mixed with the OCG list, you miss out on certain things. You don't have access to, for example, Mystic Mine. Mystic Mine is a big thing in this deck. In this particular version, there is no Mystic Mine. But what is fortunate about this deck is that you have 3 max E's, so you can stall your opponent or make them end their turn, and then you're basically always guaranteed to go first. You have 3 copies of Upstart Goblin, which this is a pretty big deal because automatically you're playing a 37 card deck. The timer doesn't work like it does in regular Yu-Gi-Oh, so you're not going to be going into time and losing because you have your opponent has higher life points. That's not going to happen. So Upstart is very good in this. You've got Pot of Avarice to shuffle back anything you need. This is another hit that you're taking. You're losing Mystic Mine, and Kagari goes to 1. But that's not particularly the biggest deal because, again, you have stuff like Pot of Avarice to shuffle back if you really need it. And stuff like the Hercules base if you really need it. But yeah. The other positive thing, Engage is at 2. The basically pseudo Pot of Greed is at 2, and it's incredibly searchable with Shizuku and all of the rest of the nonsense. And I don't know if I mentioned this already, but the ultimate soul charge for spells, as I like to call it, multi-roll, is at 3. This card is so easy to abuse. Not only does it make it so your opponent can't respond to your activations, on top of that, it basically makes it so you can set all of your spells at the end phase and then use them during your opponent's turn. It's incredibly, incredibly scary to play against. You've got 2 Widow Anchors, and then, of course, you've got all of the hand traps. This deck's engine is actually not that big, so what's fortunate is that you can play... Look at all these hand traps I'm playing. Yeah, tons of hand traps. I'm playing 12 hand traps in this deck, and if I wanted to cut some of this stuff, if I wanted to cut the Upstarts, I could replace them with more hand traps. If I wanted to cut the Avarice, I could put more hand traps. Like, this deck can interrupt for days. Nobody's playing against you. You basically prevent your opponent from playing. Like I said, the only negative thing about this is that you lost 2 Kagaris. Outside of that, the deck's gotten better in every single conceivable way, including the climate, which is just better for the deck. Also, you have access, because Crystron Needle Fiber is totally legal, you have access to the Needle Fiber play that goes into Selene, that goes into Access Code Talker. You basically just summon any of your tuners, like you summon, like, for example, your Ash Blossom and your Kagari, and then you can go into an Access Code. It's super, super, super good. You can kill at any given moment. Yeah, definitely one of the better decks in the game. All right, next up, we've got another combo deck. Again, combo decks are not dead just because Max C is legal. You have counterplay. This deck in particular has tons of counterplay. So right off the bat, this is Drytron. Drytron is very good. It doesn't really lose much. So the only thing that Drytron loses is the fact that Verde Anaconda can't really summon anything important. Like it can summon, I probably summon the Neos fusion. I didn't check the ban list for that. I don't remember to, but Dragoon is banned and Phoenix Enforcer isn't legal yet, so that is a little bit of an issue. That extra play of summoning a Phoenix Enforcer or Dragoon is typically pretty good. But you have lots of access to a variety of other things that weren't legal in the TCG before. For example, you have 3 copies of Eva if you needed it, because getting to Herald of Orange Light has just simply never been easier. You obviously have, like Maxi, as we've talked about a million times. But more importantly, you've got 3 copies of Cyber Angel Benton. It is not limited whatsoever. It's very, very good. Yeah, the Cyber Angel Benton is just disgusting. It just searches a fairy every single time you use it as ritual material. You tribute it for any reason. It's very, very, very strong. Cyber Angel Benton, you can also play a larger fairy package, which is, you can actually play the Christia if you really wanted to, because you can manipulate your graveyard fairly easily with Ava until you get 4 fairies, and when you do get 4 fairies, you just special Christia, your opponent can't special summon. Well, neither player can special summon, and you have a pretty decent lock there. If you can just summon in a gate and Christia, you basically win the game because no one can get over it. Definitely a pretty good thing there. Like I said, most of the other stuff is pretty standard. This shouldn't be here. I don't know why it's there. Most of the other things are pretty standard about this deck. Just like any other combo deck, you have the Call by the Graves if you need them, and then you've got the Crossout Designator. You can play around the Max C. Most of the time you have, if you want, 8 different interruptions, but on top of that, I didn't feel the need to play the Max C because you've got, I didn't feel the need to play the Call by the Grave because you've got the Herald of the Orange Light, which can also negate Max C on top of everything else. So if you really wanted to, in this particular deck, in any other deck, you have 8 outs to Max C. In this deck, you have 11 outs to Max C, including the Herald of the Orange Light. So Max C just doesn't even matter to this deck. You have so many different ways to stop it. In terms of the extra deck, everything is good. Like I said, the only drawback, you do have Union Carrier. You do gain a Union Carrier, which is really good. The only drawback to this is that you lose the GOAT, which is you lose the ability to summon a Dragoon or a Phoenix Enforcer. Outside of that, this deck is amazing. Like, it's got everything you need. It's basically like Drytrons were played before Benton got hit. Like, it was right before Diviner of the Herald came out, and right after Benton got hit. So basically, your Benton is back, and now you have Diviner of the Herald. So it's like a double plus. It's amazing. It's like, yeah, it just came out early, and then of course you've got the Fafnir. Everything's it's about as good as the deck has ever been. This deck is seriously good. Probably one of the better combo decks in the format. You would think the combo decks would be dead because of Max C and all the floodgates, but in reality, they don't die. A lot of these are graveyard effects. Even with skill drain on the field, you can still combo off and go off. Most of these are graveyard effects regardless. Definitely one of the better combo decks available to you. Alright, this is the next deck. This is Prank Kids. It's one of the most versatile decks. I've been talking about the other decks, how they've lost certain things and they've lost certain things. This deck only gained things. It only got better. It's incredible. So one thing that it gained right off the bat, it's got 3 Meow Meow. Meow Meow is one of the main playmakers. It turns every single Prank Kids monster into a full 1-card combo. Really good for that. On top of having, of course, the Meow Meow, it also has now access to Thunder Dragon Colossus, which I used to play this before Meow Meow came out, before Thunder Colossus was banned. You only need 1 copy. It's very easy to go into. All you have to do is just activate 1 Thunder Dragon, add 2 more Thunder Dragons. You've activated a Thunder effect in hand, and now you can just tribute one of your fancies in order to special summon the Thunder Dragon Colossus. If you have like in most boards, you can actually end on the Battle Butler plus the Thunder Dragon Colossus fairly easily. And then if you have a really good hand, you can actually end on the Battle Butler with the Meow Meow in Graveyard with the Totally Awesome and the Thunder Dragon Colossus. And that board is just absolutely disgusting. But what's awesome about this deck is, even though Totally Awesome is at 1, so that just completely neuters Paleozoics and Frogs, it doesn't matter for this deck because you only play 1 Totally Awesome. You only ever make 1 Totally Awesome. Same thing with Thunder Dragon Colossus. This hurts Thunder Dragons quite a bit, but in in this deck, you only ever make one Thunder Dragon Colossus, so it doesn't even make a difference to you. And Thunder Dragons actually lost one other card. I think they lost Hawk too. They lose 2 cards, whereas this deck just gains cards. It doesn't even matter. And like I said, it has the Praying Kids Meow Meow at 3. On top of that, it's got the Thunder Dragon Fusion, so you could just shuffle materials back and then just make either Colossus or the Battle Butler at any given time, because this is actually a Thunder monster. Also, with the Thunder Dragon, you just discard this, add 2 more Thunder Dragons, and the reason that's good is because now you have extra materials, extra cards in your hand to banish for Roxy. So you don't actually have to banish your good cards for Roxy's. You just banish the extra copy of Thunder Dragon, and then later on you can use Thunder Dragon Fusion to just fuse it and then make another Colossus. Like, it's really, really good. On top of that, this deck is unbelievable. Also, we've got the typical outs for Crossout Designator. I mean, the typical outs for Maxi. We've got Crossout Designator with Crossout Designator, and then you can use it on Maxi or Nibiru or any of the typical hand traps that you use it on. Also, we've got Maxi, and if you really feel the need to, you can also play a copy of Called by the Grave. But honestly, I'm not that scared of it. Like, if I get Maxi'd, I'll just make my one monster, I'll just pass turn, and then I'll Maxi my opponent, and I'll see what happens with them. But yeah, this deck probably is the one that I'm going to go for over all of these decks. I think it is the most versatile. It only got better. This is one of the few decks that didn't have any drawbacks whatsoever. Like, Sky Striker has lost some stuff, and they gained some stuff, and I think they gained more than they lost. But this deck just absolutely only gained. So this deck is definitely going to be one of the better ones. Alright, next up, we've got the Tri-brigades. Tri-brigades is another deck that I think just got better. Nothing really got worse about it. One thing it got is it got Drytron back, which is nice. Basically, Drytron gives them a very strong going second engine. You can just normal summon any of the Zodiacs and then go full combo into a Drytron, pop a card, go into a Zeus. You have like a 4 material Zeus, 2 Sens. You basically win the duel. If you go second in that variety. And because of all of the hand traps that are available, you can like Maxi your opponent passes. In most cases, if your opponent passes, it's a seriously big problem. But in this case, you just summon any Zodiac, you summon any Zodiac, summon all of the other corresponding Zodiacs on top of that Zodiac, and then you just attack directly, make a Zeus with 4 materials, and now your opponent has to play through a 4 material Zeus that sends everything to the graveyard 2 times non-targeting. That's going second. Going first, this deck is still incredibly good because it has all of the regular combos. Like, it'll just end basically on the Appaloosa with a Tri-brigade Revolt set. The Revolt will activate, summon Shirag. Shirag will banish whatever monster your opponent summons, and then they have to deal with a 4-negate Appaloosa. Either way, this deck is very good. Also, since it is a mid-range sort of combo deck, you do play Crossout Designator and all of the various targets that you need. Stuff like Nibiru and Maxi and Ash. Like, you can play basically around every hand trap that you want. Call by the Grave. All of these hand trap options you can replace with something else if you really wanted to, but generally I think it's better to just deal with the hand trap, go full combo, and let your opponent try to play through your board. But that is everything there. Definitely a very, very strong deck. You'll be seeing a lot of it. You'll be definitely seeing a lot of it. Alright, next up we've got, I think, the strongest control deck in the entire game. Altergeist, for example, got hit really badly because it just lost multi-fakers at 1 for no real reason, but Eldlich is really strong in this game. Eldlich got a ton of floodgates that doesn't even negatively impact it, such as Vanity's Emptiness and 3 copies of Skill Drain. And honestly, I didn't even look that deeply into the list, but there's probably even more stuff that this deck gained. This deck did not lose a single thing. It does not matter. This deck can be played exactly the way it's played in the TCG. You have Maxi, which is kind of a huge deal. If your opponent special summoning a lot, you Maxi them, and then you get all of these additional draws, and you're just drawing into floodgates, hand traps, and permanences. It just makes it worse and worse and worse for your opponent. On top of that, you've got the Thunder King Ryo, or you can actually play the Inspector Border, whichever one you think is better. Thunder King Ryo is very good. It's a Thunder Dragon Colossus, but in a normal summon form. You've got, obviously, the Golden Landman. And then this deck has a lot of searchability. It's got Prod of Prosperity, and it's got Pot of Duality, so you can dig pretty deep into your deck and get the good stuff. It's got the elixirs. The only one drawback is Curse Eldlich is at 2, which is not even remotely a huge deal. It's not that important of a card. As long as you can get to one of the either elixirs or one of the Golden Land cards, as long as you can get to one of the cards, it really isn't that big of a deal. Yeah, it's just, it literally does not even matter. As long as you can get to one of those cards, you can start getting the chain going, because you can activate Hakieros, summon a monster, banish it, then when your opponent runs over it, banish it, get the elixir, activate the elixir, summon, banish the elixir, get the Golden Land. And you basically just kind of trickle it one after the other, after the other, after the other, as long as you get one of them. So it's not that big of a deal if you get a Curse L land in your opening hand or not. But the cards that you can play, Torrential Tribute, Impermanence, you can play Dogmatic of Punishment and then send Natis and then pop 2 cards, +1 every time. The skill drain is really good. And then of course Vanity's Emptiness. You also have Summon Limit. You have 3 copies of Upstart Goblin. Like, you can really, this deck is very, very, very strong. You can even beef it up with more Floodgates, more Solemns, more of whatever you want. It's a very strong deck. For the extra deck, you've got the Natis, you've got the Pallades, which can bounce things with, you could just overlay 2 of the trap monsters. The entire rank 10 package is available to you. Link Spider for linking stuff away, and then of course some generic lights and access code talker, and Blacklisted Soldier, Solid Soldier. Don't sleep on this card, it's very good. But definitely this is one of the strongest combo decks in the entire game. If you're going after anything, I would highly consider this one. It's very, very good. Alright guys, thank you for watching. Just subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh content. I've got a lot coming down this way, both from Master Duel and other stuff. But thank you for watching, and you guys enjoy the day.